Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Anthony Edwards, 2 wins from gold, and Rudy Gobert injured? Uh-oh. We'll talk about all that on today's Minnesota basketball party.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wolves talk every Wednesday here on the Minnesota basketball party, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Ben Beacon, host of Locked On Wolves with great daily Wolves content. You can find our show on that audio feed wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Ekstrom. You'll meet the rest of the crew in just a moment. Today's show will be heavy Team USA. Anthony Edwards starring in the last couple of games as Team USA plows its way into the semifinals. So does France, but Rudy Gobert banged up in the process. We'll talk about those ramifications and get into some offseason Wolves content, including one stat we need the Wolves to improve in 2024-25. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The sports aren't sportsing as much as we'd like right now, though the Olympics are pretty compelling, and so is Major League Baseball. So for those sports that are going on, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right, something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Plenty to get to, as I mentioned, but let's meet our panel with this morning's opening tip.
Reggie Wilson, sports director at Care 11, and game in hand, game out of hand, doesn't matter. Anthony Edwards is getting his.
And I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers wide receiver, former NFL wide receiver, Gophers Hall of Famer, avid basketball fan, loved watching Team USA. For those who saw the Ron Johnson show, Sam Ekstrom asked me, well, how many points would Anthony Edwards score? I said 17. I think Anthony Edwards scored 17. And also for those watching on YouTube, I'm wearing this shirt for a reason. Why did I left my house for this? It's kind of my Tyrese Halliburton / Jason Tatum. So it's a light-skinned assault. They came out the house for nothing. They're just sitting on the bench hoping that maybe one day somebody will talk about them.
And I'm Jack Warman, co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman, former editor-in-chief at Canasupis. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I hope TJ Shannon has been watching Anthony Edwards play in Paris, and why I think he's going to have a lot of fun playing alongside him.
And again, I'm Sam Ekstrom, executive producer here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. And I'm at the stage, guys, I think, where I take for granted USA basketball's dominance. This must be how Patriots fans felt for 2 decades, how Warriors fans felt there in the 2010s. The Soviets felt about their hockey team in the 70s. It's hard for me to really dial in and get emotional about these games when Team USA is just so good. They're so dominant. They take the intrigue out so fast. Haven't really been tested yet. Now we get into the semifinal round. I think I'll be able to get up for like a gold medal game against France and be really, really engaged. But there's not a lot of drama right now. Team USA beats Brazil in the quarterfinals by 35. You know, they're not really challenged by a lot of NBA talent in yesterday's game, led by 27 at halftime. As mentioned, Anthony Edwards scored 17. Also scored 26 against Puerto Rico in their final pool play game. But Reggie, Ant looks great. Team USA looks great. Lacking a little drama right now. Haven't really been tested here in these Olympics.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too, because now Joel Embiid is starting to get going a bit, too. And I know he was of much criticism from Jack and myself in the last basketball party. I think he heard us talking, Jack. But it's so funny. I was cutting highlights for the game yesterday for Care 11, and I saw that Ant only had 9 points in the third quarter. And I was like, oh, 5 players in double figures. I'm like, yeah, it'll probably be 6. And it'll probably get up to at least 10 free throws, whatever. Finishes the game with 17. Starts the fourth quarter with the dunk. Ends the fourth quarter. It's like 42 seconds left. He's still putting up threes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, we're not at the point where, the point differential necessarily matters anymore, but like they're still just like putting it on them. And so it was a complete all-around performance from the team. Like I said, it was six players in double figures. Anthony Davis continues to be an international asset. He had the dunk of the day yesterday. Some are calling it the dunk of the Olympics. And it's just, I mean, LeBron went out with the eye injury. At first, it was like, oh, it's classic LeBron, being LeBron, drama and all that. And then it was like, oh, wait, he needed stitches? Oh, like, and then you saw the picture of the eye all red and kind of bloody. It was like, oh, okay, well, guess that was something. But to the point where he didn't even really need to come back into the game. It was already in hand. KD becomes the all-time scorer. Like, it was just a dominant performance. And it's hard for me to see a team really doing anything like against them because, they play Serbia next. Could be a good matchup. Serbia came back from 24 down to beat Australia, which was incredible.
Great game. Great game.
Sorry to our boy Joe Ingles. Sorry he had to go out like that, but they beat Serbia once last Sunday and also in exhibition play as well. So it's hard for me to think that this game will be much different, even though Serbia, is riding some momentum into Thursday. I just don't see it. Like, the team just is clicking. And on any given game, you just never know what you're going to get. You had Devin Booker last game going off. So you just never know what you're going to get. And then Ant, like I said, he's going to get his regardless. Coming off the 26 points, had a birthday in between, partying with Gunna and, having a great time in Paris, like living the life, man. At 23 years old, can you even imagine doing that, living it up? Got Gunna in Paris, going to parties, got the baby over there with him as well. Like, he's enjoying himself, and he's getting his as well on an international stage. It's good vibes right now.
Yeah, the Serbia matchup in the semis doesn't feel too formidable. I think they were even when Jokic was on the floor in the exhibition game, and they were like plus 26 when he was off the floor. So if Jokic can play all 40, maybe Serbia can do something, but U.S. also beat them by 30 in the last gold medal game in the Tokyo Olympics. I'm circling France USA in the championship. I did want to ask you, Reg, did you see LeBron when he sat on the bench, like taking bows and waving to the crowd, thinking they were cheering for him, but it was actually Leon Marchand that they were cheering for? Hilarious if you didn't see it. LeBron
I saw him do the while he was sitting there. What was that for?
He was loving it. He thought the crowd was giving him a standing ovation when he went to the bench. Nope. It just happened to be right when the French swimmer was like shown on the video board or something, and was not for LeBron. But Ron, let's talk about the shirt. What's going on with the shirt?
Well, this is what my family got me. I think 2 Father's Days ago or something, or Christmas maybe. So it's just I left my house for this, because that's how I feel. If I leave the house and there's nothing going on, I'm that person. I'm literally gonna be like, I really just came out the house for this, and that's where Tyrese Halliburton probably felt. 8 minutes, 2 points. He's sitting back watching a blowout, and he's like, I could have stayed in the Olympic Village and watched this swimmer get kicked out because she's inappropriate. Like, why am I sitting here? So, when you look at what's going on with this team, first of all, that's the shirt. For those watching on YouTube too, make sure you go on and subscribe on YouTube, people. But when you look at this team, it's dominance. And Reggie's right. Reggie's not white. He's right. Reggie White was the D lineman for the Packers. When you look at what Reggie said, he's right. There is no team right now that I could see as a whole. Because here's the thing. You can stop LeBron, but then you got Kevin Durant. You could stop Kevin Durant, but then you got Anthony Edwards. You can stop Anthony Edwards, but then you got Devin Booker. You still got Bam Adebayo putting up points. You still got Drew Holiday coming in giving numbers. You still got Jason Tatum that if he's unleashed, Jason Tatum can give you 20. So this is a team that whoever's hot, I feel like they're going to like go with it. And these are very veteran players. They don't need a coach to tell them to let this guy cook. I noticed that in some of the garbage rebounds. Like, I don't know if they're just bigger and stronger or some of the teams just quit, because I felt like they get a lot of offensive rebounds, a lot of long offensive rebounds off missed threes. And so we saw the one for Devin Booker, missed the three. They get the rebound, kick it back to him for a second chance. He knocks it down. That's what this team is doing. They're like, look, this dude's hot. Let's get Devin Booker, keep giving the ball. Steph Curry, he gets a steal. No, he's not going for a layup or pass. He's going to knock down a three from the stands. And so this team is dominant. Like, I love the YouTube videos of people making jokes about what it's like playing against a USA team. I love like some of the memes that people have created. It's literally like playing against the Avengers. Every minute you got Thor, Iron Man, the Hulk, you got Ant-Man, you got everything you can think of in a dominant team. And they've put, you even got Wolverine and Deadpool in this group. Like, you've put everything together to possibly beat everybody in the world. And I just hope, and this is the one thing that they're going to have to make sure they do. It's been blowouts. They got to stay serious, though, because I think Dwayne Wade was saying that on the broadcast that, hey, this is the tough time when you're up by 20 or you're up by 30 and you got so many superstars. It's tough to stay locked in. And that's what they have to understand is maybe a team like Serbia, maybe when they get to the gold medal game, it gets harder and harder. So you got to stay locked in the whole game, because one slip up and one sense of hope, any doubt, it can go bad. And yeah, Sam, I saw the video too. LeBron is an absolute, like, he's funny sometimes without even being funny and doesn't even realize it. Like, he's so corny. He's such a dad. I will say I watched a different angle. Somebody else did the video in that tweet, Sam. They said LeBron was on the screen for a quick second because he subbed out and was sitting down. And then it switched, like the crowd got loud. And what LeBron did, so LeBron looks up, it's him, and then he starts trying to do his thing, like, let me look into the camera and give you my crown. And right when he's doing that, nobody saw that, just whoever posted that. It flipped to the swimmer, because Dwayne Wade and whoever else is doing the broadcast, they figured that out too. Like, oh, is that Marshawn? Oh, I think that's Marshawn. And he stands up and waves to the crowd and blah, blah. Yeah, LeBron, stop putting the crown on. Like, Kings don't crown themselves. Like, that's what the gestures do. They crown you. Your workers crown you. You can't knight yourself. That's what the king knights the princes. Kings don't crown themselves. Somebody else put your crown on. Stop doing that.
Jack Borman from a new location. You still been watching Team USA amidst your move?
Yes, I have. I was able to catch the game yesterday, and I've got to say, I was prepared to talk about LeBron and Marshawn, because that might have been my favorite thing from yesterday. LeBron hearing Leon or however they were chanting it, thinking it was for him, was fantastic.
LeBron, but similar.
Yeah, it's. But yeah, I mean, Reggie was talking about Ant, and I was just thinking of that Denzel clip when I think he was talking to Jamie Foxx, and he was like, "I'm leaving here with something." And that's like what Ant was yesterday. It was, and that's kind of what I think is fun about the Olympics, is that, when a guy like Tyrese Halliburton or Jason Tatum or whomever it is, maybe that's out of the rotation for that game, kind of gets in the fourth quarter, they kind of ignite, another spark, because it's like, hey, I want to get mine. I don't want to have a bunch of zeros next to my name. I want to kind of get active here and make some noise. And I think that's what's been fun to watch about this USA team, is that they could get so complacent if they wanted to. But yesterday they had 142 offensive rating. Like, you can't have an 142 offensive rating in a single game if you're not, having your foot on the gas pedal for the entire game. And I think a lot of that just speaks to how confident everybody is on this USA team and how quickly they've kind of settled into what their roles are and how comfortable they've gotten playing alongside certain guys. Like, you look at the way Anthony Edwards is feeding off of Kevin Durant offensively and then Anthony Davis defensively. I think what's been, I guess most fun for me outside of Ant, I think still being the leading scorer on Team USA after yesterday, was that, he's really kind of used his experience playing around Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels and kind of taken it to another level in the Olympics with how aggressive he's been and trying to be a defensive playmaker, try to create transition opportunities for Team USA going the other way. I know the result doesn't necessarily matter as much as it does in the NBA in terms of how consequential his play is. But I think if Anthony Edwards can kind of carry forth this, I guess, heightened aggression on that end of the floor, trying to create transition opportunities and runouts, that's going to do wonders for the Timberwolves. And I think TJ Shannon showed a lot of the same in Vegas. And I think TJ Shannon would be really smart to go back and watch some of these Anthony Edwards highlights and watch the way that, he kind of lulls, guards to sleep and then just kind of jumps out of the weeds and is just going the other way. Because, if you're able to do that 2 or 3 times in a game, that's 4 or 6 free points. And even if the defense gets somewhat set going the other way, you still have a really good offensive opportunity against a defense that isn't set. And I think, we all watch the Timberwolves offense for the majority of this last season. And there were certainly stretches where it's like, man, they could really just use one bucket or an easy bucket in transition to kind of get him going. And I think the more that we can see that from Ant, who I think crazily is somewhat, kind of not been quite as impactful as we'd all hoped that he'd be in transition so far, given how explosive of an athlete he is. And I think adding another guy in TJ Shannon who has that level of athleticism or near that level of athleticism, but also the length and the playmaking instincts on the defensive end of the floor to really be impactful and create transition opportunities, I think is going to be really important. So not quite as much of a USA take maybe as you were looking for, Sam, but it did just have me thinking about the Timberwolves just because my brain is a little broken in that regard. But yeah, I have to say it again. Reggie, we were all over it with Joel Embiid. I've never seen somebody that has as little pride in playing for America, maybe in any sport I've ever seen, as Joel Embiid. And Anthony Davis. I could not have gained any more respect for a player in this Team USA experience than Anthony Davis. Just though he is battling on both ends of the floor, getting absolutely killed on the inside on both ends of the floor. And he still is just making every extra little hustle play. And it's been just a joy to watch. And I fully understand why Lakers fans are, just pissed about, Anthony Davis not winning Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy Gobert. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying I understand why they're going hard for their guy, because he does make a ton of crazy little extra effort plays that really stand out when you're kind of watching for it.
Speaking of Rudy, some peculiar injury news yesterday on Rudy from Team France. What are the ramifications there? Is there a concern about him wearing down in this international tournament? We'll talk about that on the other side of the break on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let me tell you about BetterHelp and why it's important. Therapy is very important. Your schedule gets really busy, and it's good to be able to process just the priorities in your life, the projects you have going on, trying to get your mind right. Because when you're able to rank your priorities and sort of know what makes you happy, that's when you can really optimize your day-to-day. If you feel like you don't have time for yourself, non-negotiables like therapy, more important than ever. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched up with a licensed therapist. Switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, welcome back. Minnesota Basketball Party, part of our great lineup here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. We've got the football party live on Mondays and Thursdays, the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays. He had Jeff Schwartz on yesterday, great episode, and the Roundtable on Fridays with Reggie Wilson, Julia Daniels, Ron Johnson, and myself. So the other side of the Wolves players in the Olympics news, Rudy Gobert played 3 minutes in France's win yesterday. He said he had surgery on his finger. The team said he didn't have surgery on his finger. He played 3 minutes, though, after having this alleged surgery, and says he's going to play against Germany in the semifinal. But you see that news, and you immediately shudder, right? Worst case scenario, because this happened 2 years ago. Rudy Gobert got worn down in international play and was not the same guy, was not the guy the Wolves wanted to have in the regular season. Rudy Gobert, though, cares deeply about his country, wants to be a part of Team France. They've got a great chance at a medal. They could play for a gold against Team USA. That could be really, really exciting. Rudy's going to try to battle through that. Ron, though, concern about Rudy wearing himself down this offseason, already now with a finger injury of some kind.
Yeah, I am. I'm not going to lie. And again, a finger's not like, I wouldn't say if it was knee, calf, like quad, anything back. Finger is more just an injury is going to happen, but I am still worried about just wearing down, period. My hope is that Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert. Who else was in the Olympics? Joe Ingles,
Nikhil Alexander Walker,
Nikhil
who's
Alexander
out
Walker,
now,
but
didn't
he's
play
out.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about the guys that went long, but even the guys that were in it, I hope that the Timberwolves have a plan for those guys when they return to camp to understand, or like a plan now during this offseason to say, hey, this is the time you need off. This is the body recovery time you need. Because what they're not getting, which a lot of other guys are, which is being able to sit back and do absolutely nothing. So they're resting, they're in Paris just eating and hanging out, watching the guys if they decide to go over there. We know a lot of guys did. They're sitting back, getting massages, doing all the stuff, just lifting weights. And so, yeah, I mean, we know that playing basketball, especially at that height, it can wear on your body. The taller guys get, the tougher it is on their body as they get older. We've heard the stories from Shaq about that, about carrying extra weight and XYZ. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried, but I will say the finger has nothing to do. Like if it was calf, ankle, knee, something like that, I'd say, yeah, like put them on ice. Fingers it happens. Those happen. Jam fingers, broken fingers, dislocated fingers. That's nothing to do with running up and down the court. So hopefully he can get over that. The good thing is he's not a shooter. The bad thing is he still needs to be able to catch the alley-oops and hold on to the ball. So he'll be fine though. But yeah, I do want him to relax a little bit. Like just relax when you're done.
We do need Rudy to be okay for this potential gold medal game, because I just got to see Ant against Rudy. I got to see Ant plowing down the lane, running into the defensive player of the year to see what happens. Jack, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if we want to do a 2v1 here, but Evan Fournier also referred to yesterday, or the day before, as Rudy Gobert having surgery. So I don't know. I don't know if we're doing an aggregate game here with of he said, she said, but yeah, I'm not concerned about this one bit. Obviously it's a finger injury. If he was good enough to play today, I'm sure he had some sort of injury. I'd be shocked if the Timberwolves were not notified of said injury, or at least, we're like, all right, if you're all right, then play cool. Like I'm sure that they had some level of input into whether or not he was playing. And so clearly not something that you'd be concerned about long-term, but even then, like you want to look at like when he had back and knee issues 2 years ago, he was playing in Eurobasket, which was, when you're banging with guys like Nurkic and Jokic and Valanciunas and Sabonis and guys like that, where it's just a very physical interior game. He played 27 minutes a game across 9 games. So in last year, he only played in 4 games in the World Cup, playing about 24 minutes a game. This year, again, has only played in 4 games at under 17 minutes a game. So I think you're far less concerned about the wear and tear of that, especially considering that the World Cup and the Olympics are much less physical than Eurobasket when you're just looking at who are the centers that he's matching up with directly. So I think yesterday was just more about the fact that Canada went really small, and France played, Gershon Yabusele at the 4 with Wemby at the 5 in those small lineups to try to counter that. And then that's totally fine. I don't think Timberwolves fans should be upset that Rudy Gobert is not playing more. Frankly, I think they should, if anything, be somewhat grateful that Rudy Gobert isn't playing more and potentially, like you're saying, getting or kind of accumulating more of that wear and tear on his body. Obviously, you want to see him make the biggest impact that he can for his home country, just because I think obviously, we've seen what it means to French athletes to compete in the Olympics in their home country. So, you'd hope that he'll be able to make more of an impact against a team like Germany that probably is going to play a little bit bigger, considering that they have Mo Wagner and Daniel Theis. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't think we're going to see another situation where you have a guy like Dylan Brooks guarding Wemby at the 5, which was hilarious to watch for certain stretches of that game. And that game was an awesome basketball game too, by the way. I had a ton of fun watching those games while I was working yesterday. So not concerned at all. I obviously hope that he's fine and we'll be ready to go for training camp. But Ron nailed it. It's not a hammy, not a calf, not an ankle, something like that. So,
Reggie, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, I know, Wolves have like some trepidation in the first place with Rudy participating, even if they may not publicly say so, just because, Rudy is getting older and, there's a lot of wear and tear on the body. He's had some nicks and dings and injuries. And I will say, for a player with what some fans may describe as having shaky hands, him having a finger injury is less than ideal. because you want those fingers to be as strong as possible to catch the lobs and, catch the ball in the paint, which sometimes he has issues with from time to time. But I think it is maybe for his own good that maybe he's not playing as many minutes as he probably would or used to in past competitions outside of the Olympics. 3 minutes, not really sweating that too much, but I do want to get a handle on this finger injury, though. Did he get surgery? Did he not? Like this game of he said, it's kind of strange.
Yes. And I don't know if it was lost, like people took him to say I was on the operating table as I had surgery. I don't know if he used the word surgery. I mean, I did see a quote where, what was it? Rudy said, I was on the operating table last night. I mean, that implies surgery. So I guess I don't know if he used the word or not. Officially, I'd have to go back to the full transcript or if something got lost in translation, but it is a little weird. France.
I will say, Sam, though,
yeah.
That could be because that happened to me. A lot of guys consider just being in the training room and they have to stitch, like he could have had like a bone pop out, maybe a dislocation. They had to stitch it up. A lot of guys, not say joke, but they do say that's the operating table because they have like this little table. The doctor comes in, they stitch you up right there. They literally pop the bone back in if it's dislocated and quote unquote, yeah, guys can say that. So it could be something like that. It could have been like a dislocation like Ant's and he just had to pop it back in, but maybe his had a little bit of like skin tear and they had to, suture it up. Who knows?
Yeah, hopefully something minor and acute like that. When we return, I want a stat from each of you that the Wolves can improve in 2024-25. That's next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The sports slowed down in the summer. We all love sports. We wish that the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs were still here. We can't wait for the NFL. But right now we got Olympics, we got MLB. That's about it. But that's okay because FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone every day, all summer long. I know Jack Borman, he loves his golf bets. You can do golf bets with the FedEx Cup being awarded here in the next few weeks. Head over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most out of your summer. Team USA women favored by 28.5 against Nigeria this afternoon. Get in that action with a booster bonus. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Back on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Hey, please subscribe to Locked On Sports Minnesota. Get us to 8,000 subscribers by the time the Wolves start next basketball season. We'd really appreciate that. One stat, guys. One stat the Wolves can improve in 2024-25. We've been going over some offseason Wolves questions, and this is the question of the day. We'll start with Jack Borman.
Yeah, I had one that we lamented quite a bit on the basketball party throughout the season and on the postcast with Luke Inman is just 3-point shot rate. So what percentage of your total shots are 3-point shots is something that I think will help the Timberwolves quite a bit next season. But I also think based on some of the personnel moves that they made this season will kind of naturally kind of move that way. But last season, the Timberwolves shot 38.7% from three in the regular season. That was third in the NBA behind OKC and Boston. And yeah, I mean, the 3-point shots represented just about 35% of their total shot attempts. And I just think, there's the more they try to drive into crowds and force stuff and try to make stuff happen in the paint that maybe isn't there with a lack of spacing, leads to more turnovers and leads to more missed shots at the rim or in that short mid-range area. And those are actually the shots that lead to transition opportunities more going the other way. A lot of people think that it's long misses off the rim that lead to more transition runouts, but it's actually the opposite because a lot of times when you miss in the short range, you end up on the ground or you end up deep under the basket. And you maybe have guys trying to crash the offensive glass. And so that's what creates the 4-on-2s, the 5-on-3s, stuff like that going the other way. So, I think the more threes that they can shoot to just kind of create more spacing, make the defense close out more, just kind of spread the defense out a little bit. I just think it's going to create more spacing for some of the more dynamic downhill athletes that the Timberwolves have on the roster, and Anthony Edwards and TJ Shannon, and you could even throw Karl Anthony Towns in there because I think when he's got burlier fives on him, he's shown that he can get past those guys and be really productive at the rim, like we saw down the stretch of the playoffs. And I think you want to look at which guys specifically can improve a little bit more. Ant is sitting at 30% of his total shots or threes. I think you'd like to see him not work as much in the mid-range and the flow of the game. I think if he wants to work in the mid-range later in the game, I think that's totally cool when he's posting up smaller guys, things like that. But I think, converting a few mid-range shots into three-point shots would certainly be helpful, considering he shoots a better percentage from three than he does from the mid-range. Jaden McDaniels is at 39%. I think you could see him closer to 55 or 60% even, just because I think, he likes to get into that short mid-range area and elevate over some guys. But I think, again, like, obviously the math in terms of a three-point shot being worth more than that 2-point shot is key, but the spacing is really important, because then the more threes that he's going to shoot, the further out they're going to play on him and the more cutting opportunities it's going to open up for him. And then Karl-Anthony Towns is the last one. He was at 31%, which is a pretty decent number when you're looking at bigs around the league. But for reference, Brook Lopez, a very good three-point shooter himself, but not as good of a three-point shooter as Karl-Anthony Towns, was at 50%. 50% of his total shots came from three. And Naz Reid was at 44%. And Naz Reid played better with Rudy Gobert for the most part last season than Karl-Anthony Towns did. And I think that's a big part of it. The spacing just looked so much better. And Naz is a guy who likes to drive to the basket just as much as Karl does. But I think he took out more of those post-ups that he wasn't quite as efficient in, and converted them into threes to make the spacing better for everyone around him. And one guy, a little bit of a surprise, who ranked higher than Karl in this, Draymond Green, 32% of his total shots were three-pointers. So if Draymond Green is doing something better than you shooting from three, like, gotta maybe look inward a little bit. But I think Joe Ingles will help here too. A significant number of his shots, more than half of his shots were three-point shots last year, and he shot 43% on 168 threes and was 99th percentile in catch and shoot efficiency. So I think that'll be really important. And then, like I said, Rob Dillingham, TJ Shannon, also guys that can shoot three pretty well and are willing to let it go. So that's the biggest one for me, just because I think it'll have some really positive trickle-down effects for the rest of the offense.
I wonder if there's a way to improve the pace, which is sort of my idea, that they ranked 24th in pace last year, 97 possessions per 48 minutes. They're a little bit of an older team with Connolly. He's not as much of a runner. He's a very controlled, half-court offense kind of point guard. Rudy Gobert is not great in transition because he can't catch the ball very well. Now he's got a bad finger. Karl-Anthony Towns lumbers a little bit down the floor. He's not quite as athletic on the breakout. So they don't have a great pacey starting five, I wouldn't say. But I wonder if that bench unit with Naz, Dillingham, could maybe improve that area and just get more shots up. Because it's not just threes that they're not shooting. They're just not shooting. They're 29th in field goal attempts per game. So they're just not putting up a lot of shots. I wonder if improving the pace would help with that, and if that's realistic with the group they have, because, again, you still got Gobert, Towns, and Conley.
And Tim Connolly would agree with you, Sam. That was his biggest thing in his exit interviews. He wanted to improve the pace.
Oh, well, I'm glad he agrees with me. Reggie, what do you got?
Yeah, pace is my thing too, but also Timberwolves were 16th in offensive rating, 115.6 offensive rating last season. I think it's kind of crazy to think that Chris Finch is this offensive-minded coach and was kind of brought in to be creative. And I do think that he does some great things to make things work. But I think I would really love to see the team just be a little bit more efficient offensively. You kind of look at some of the things that they do with this Team USA squad and some of the systems that like Steve Kerr runs, even with like his Warriors, just to get guys open shots and things like that. Yeah, they got to hit the shots, but also just getting better shots. How many times have we talked about Cat getting the ball and just like, you know what, I'm just going to try to make a basket happen for myself. Dribbles into the lane, kind of heavily trafficked. He runs into someone, gets called for a charge, and we're going the other way. I think I just want to see better possessions from the Wolves moving forward so that they can actually, be better against teams that they should beat. I think we saw a lot of that last season, and it's hard to really criticize with how the Wolves did last year because of how far they went and at times being dominant in these games. But there are times where the offense just lulls, and if they're up, sometimes they get teams back in it because their offensive game just kind of stalls a little bit. And then if they're down, we've seen those third quarter Wolves last year, they were able to pick it up. But if they didn't have to just pick it up in that third quarter because maybe the first half of basketball was just a little bit more efficient, I think things will be a little bit better, and maybe we'd see a even better brand of basketball. We talk about the guys like Dillingham and Shannon coming in, kind of helping those efforts. You bring in a guy like Ingles who can pop a three. I think you just want to see better possessions and just get back to being a team that maybe Finchie can be proud of in the offensive game, because we saw the defense just blossom last year. But I think from an offensive standpoint, you just want to see them go even further than they did last season.
Ron, what do you got?
Yeah, so I was hoping nobody took mine because there was a lot of good stuff out there, but I think mine goes in what everybody's saying. I like the pace of play, and the big number I looked at, who made the finals? The Celtics and the Mavs. The Timberwolves, when it looks at the Celtics and Mavs, their stats are pretty much dead on even in everything. They beat them in a lot of categories. If you look at points per game, they're at 107. 106 was the Mavs. Boston was 108. When you look at assists, same thing. They're right there. You look at steals, they're right there. Here's the two categories where I feel like it's not far off to change, and this is why this is an easy change, and it goes with tempo and hustle. Rebounds and blocks. The Mavs and the Celtics, both in the blocks category, beat the Timberwolves, but not by much. So who is that? That's Rudy. That's Jaden McDaniels. That's Naz Reid. That's Cat. Just get in there a little bit more. Get aggressive. And even Ant. I mean, we know Ant can eliminate some stuff. Rebounds. That's the one where total number, they're not far off, but defensive rebounds, they're behind, which means they're giving the teams additional offensive rebounds to make layups. Clean up the boards on the defensive side. You're not far off. When you look at the Denver Mavericks, well, the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics, they're both right there at the same, like at 43, 43, and then the Timberwolves are 42. So they're not far off, but 31 to 33. So you're talking about two defensive rebounds. That's a Rudy hustle. That's a Jaden McDaniels hustle. That's an Ant clean up the boards. That's it. Two defensive rebounds changes that. That's probably two possessions they don't get and two possessions you get. And so that's a very simple thing I'm looking for is hustle, but you got to hustle and clean up the boards. It can't be, it has to be at all times, no lazy play. You just can't watch a shot go up and assume, okay, my teammate's going to get it. It's got to go back to that old school. And that's why I like some of the USA practices where guys are working on rebounding, because they were saying these are the countries that are going to hustle, man. They're going to try to dive at our legs. They're going to try to run around us to get these rebounds because they know they got to do everything in their power to beat us. And you watch the drills where like Steph Curry's boxing out, LeBron's boxing out, Ant's boxing out. So I hope Ant brings that back to his team and say, hey, look, man, we got to get back to the basics on some of this. We're some of the best athletes in the world, but we also can get real lazy sometimes when we're tired down the stretch and we're letting teams get 2-3 opportunities to get the ball back and make layups or hit another three. They got to fix up clean up the defensive rebounds, but that's just two. I just need two and one block. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And offensive rebounds too. They were 25th last year, didn't get as many second chance opportunities. So I think, getting more active on the glass. That's a good one. Here, closing out the show with this, Lauri Markkanen for the Jazz, reportedly signing a contract extension. Does this mean we can exhale? Like we've had the Markkanen trade rumors, we've had the Cat to the Knicks trade rumors, and some thought that Markkanen would be involved in that, like a 3-team deal of some kind. Can we exhale now? Are the Wolves done maneuvering quickly on this? Reg, are we good? Is this the team that we're going to go to battle with this year?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that trade really ever made sense anyway. I don't know who they would have given up that really would have made that make sense. Looking at some of the teams that declined to trade for him. I think there were a lot of teams that felt like the deal was a little too rich. So I don't know that was something that really made sense for the Wolves to do. I just think that was just, it was just noise at this point. But, good for him. Utah paying him that money. And we'll see how that goes. But you never know, once this deal goes through, I guess, once we get to like the halfway point of the season, if things are not maybe going the Wolves' way, the way that they want to, I guess they can still kind of call that up and see what can be done. But I don't know that he necessarily fit.
The problem is that because they're not trading for him, there's going to be another rumor that comes up, at the trade deadline. And then after the season, we're just going to be perpetually in trade rumor mode as long as the Wolves are way over this salary cap. But Ron, you think, are we good now? Can we breathe easy?
I think so. The one thing when I heard like they were talking about what Julius Randle was part of the trade. The only reason I like that was similar age, was on the floor more than Cat, and brought a certain type of attitude to the team. Like I don't know if you get the same production offensively as some of these blow up games Cat has that Julius Randle didn't have, but you get a different type of like bully ball, grab rebounds, do the dirty work, the Charles Oakley stuff, the Draymond Green stuff. You get that out of him. Like with Julius Randle, there's no way Rudy Gobert gets choked out. Like Julius Randle's not letting that happen. And so that's what I looked at. But I mean, yeah, I think we can probably breathe now. I don't see, unless there's going to be some kind of blindside super like Brandon Ayuk type of deal where it's last minute. I don't see it happening.
Jack.
Yeah, I think the case for the Carl to the Knicks, Markkanen to the Wolves, and Randall potentially to the Lakers with some stuff from the Lakers going to Utah, I think made a great deal of sense from a financial perspective for the Timberwolves. If you're looking to keep, if you're looking to keep Nas long term, if you're looking to keep Rudy long term, and you're looking to, have a marginal, I guess, step back in talent at the 4 spot from Cat to Markkanen in order to make all of that work, and then also potentially be able to keep Markkanen long term. So, it made sense to me from a financial perspective. I certainly would still rather have Karl Anthony Towns than Lauri Markkanen, but I definitely think that we can put all of that to bed. Markkanen now isn't going to get traded. Now he's not going to get traded at the deadline because he would have had to get traded yesterday in order to, I believe, or excuse me, yesterday was the last day he could have signed an extension and then been traded again before the trade deadline. And there was only one day on the trade deadline that he could have been traded if he signed an extension yesterday. So, yeah, I don't think the Timberwolves are going to do anything. And I would be surprised if the Timberwolves did anything of great significance at the trade deadline either. I think the only thing that you might see at the trade deadline, potentially is something where the Wolves sign a buyout guy like they did this last season with TJ Warren, or they do what they did with Luka Garza, where they convert a 2-way contract into a standard NBA contract. And I think the player you'd circle there would certainly be Jalen Clark, considering what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. So, I think the Wolves are ready to roll for training camp. I think we'll start to see in the next few weeks here some training camp contracts get signed potentially, and see who the Wolves are going to bring in to Mayo Clinic Square come the last week of September.
Well, hopefully we have like a schedule to break down pretty soon. I don't know if we have a date on that yet. They released the preseason schedule. Don't really care as much about that, but hopefully the regular season schedule is out pretty soon. We got next week. We'll have Olympics gold medal coverage to get into. We'll see what happens there with Team USA and Rudy, perhaps, and plenty more. Timberwolves talk. Wolves talk every Wednesday. Minnesota Basketball Party, part of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Reggie Wilson, KARE 11 Sports Director. Check out his work after the Olympics every night. Ron Johnson of The Ron Johnson Show. Check that out. And Jack Borman on the postcast when the season returns. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on the Locked On Wolves podcast feed. And we'll talk to you next week.